so I can see it. Where did my chat go? There's my chat. I'll put it over here. Oh, I lost my chat anyway. What did you guys say for number 1? Letter grades in all college courses should be replaced by pass-fail grades. Let's do the reaction tools in Canvas. Let's use those. So how many of you said that this is an arguable statement? Nobody? Give me a thumbs up if you said this is an arguable statement, this first statement here. Daniel says it's arguable. Letter grades in college courses. Robert says it's arguable. Thank you, Leslie, Jack. Okay. Andrew says it's arguable. Christopher. Okay, good. And do the rest of you agree that this is arguable? Jose says it's arguable. Thank you. Yeah, it is. We could imagine a pro-con chart, right, where you come up with all the reasons why letter grades should be replaced, but then counter arguments where the viewpoints are saying, here are the reasons why letter grades should not be replaced by pass-fail grades, right? And this language right here is good language to signal that this statement is at least intended as an arguable statement, okay? What about number 2? Sororities and fraternities are responsible for binge drinking among college students. Is that statement arguable? Give me a thumbs up if you think that's an arguable statement. If you can imagine viewpoints on both sides of that statement, some people saying yes and having their reasons, and some people saying no, that fraternities are not responsible for binge drinking. Andrew says, yes, it's arguable. Who else? Wendy says yes. Andrew says yes. I said Andrew already. Okay, what I'm doing right now is scrolling through your images so I can see who responded. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing on my screen. Okay, I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I kind of think this is just a fact. I kind of think it's just a fact that they're responsible. They're not solely responsible, right? There are lots of reasons why college students binge drink, but the way sororities and fraternities operate, the kind of parties that they hold, and the kind of sort of rituals that they perform, right? Where drinking games are encouraged at these parties, okay? An excessive consumption of alcohol is often encouraged. Hazing rituals, right, often involve a consumption of a lot of alcohol at these parties. So I don't know. I think the way this statement is framed, I think that it might just be a fact. Okay, but I don't know. If this statement was something more like sororities and fraternities are responsible for binge drinking among college students and therefore they should be abolished, right? We should just do away with sororities and fraternities. That might be more arguable than this statement. Okay, that's my thinking on it. But what about 3? Lobster is my favorite food. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's arguable. Nobody thinks that one's arguable? I agree, it's not, right? Can someone tell me, just by unmuting yourself and speaking, what makes this statement not arguable? What kind of a statement is it?
Individual's preference.
That's right, it's an opinion of personal taste or preference, right? I just like it or I don't like it. You can't really argue about this. You know, my kids like to argue about stuff like this. You know, cake is the best dessert. No, ice cream is the best dessert. But really, those arguments just go around in circles, right? They don't really go anywhere. So this is not an academically arguable statement, even though it's something that people might argue about, okay? You couldn't argue about it in an academic paper. What about this one? Professor Green is is one of the best professors on campus. Give me a thumbs up if you think that one's arguable. Daniel thinks it is. Robert. Anybody else think this one is? Andrew. Okay, so the same people are participating, which means the rest of you aren't. Okay, and you know, what I'm trying to do here is just make sure that we're all on the same page, because this is the starting point for you guys understanding arguments, is which of these statements can you even start with to make an argument? Okay, and if you can't, why not? All right, so what about the rest of you? Professor Green is one of the best professors on campus. You think this one could be argued?
No, it's not arguable because we don't know the professor.
Okay, all right, so could we change this into an arguable statement, you guys? Here, let me stop sharing so I can see you better. This is kind of awkward. Okay, so I stopped sharing and now I can see you all at once. Could we change the statement about Professor Green? Could we revise it some way so that it would be a better statement for an argument? What could we do to it, if anything, to fix it so it works for an argument? The statement is Professor Green is one of the best professors on campus. I think that's the statement.
I could say, I believe Professor Green is the best professor on campus.
Okay, so then you're kind of softening the statement. You're saying, this may or may not be true. This is what I think, right? But then how would you defend that belief? How would you defend that statement?
By having facts such as the teacher had an award for blah, 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 so on.
Right. So you would need to add a because,
Yes.
right, to that statement. Professor Green is one of the best professors on campus because, and some reasons, right? So what we're doing is we're identifying what we mean by best. We're not just saying something is the best in argument. The first Avengers movie is the best superhero movie ever made, right? Do you guys agree or disagree? Ulysses, no, that was a terrible movie, right? And I know that comic book and superhero movie fans hate that movie, and I'm not a big fan of it either. So that's why I give it as an example, as a kind of a joke. But we could still make that argument, right? But we would need to say what we mean by best. We would need to establish a set of standards that people who are fans of that genre of filmmaking generally agree are important elements, okay, to be present in a good movie. So what are some of the elements that you look for in a superhero movie? Am I yelling, by the way? Is my volume okay? Is it good?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. What are some things? Like when we talk about a movie is a good movie because it has this and this and this and this in it.
Okay, so movie with superhero movie, you look at the acting, the action, and whether it's based off the actual comics, like if it relates to comics.
Yeah. Comic book fans hate it, right? When Marvel Studios makes movies that are not consistent with the original story that was given in the comic, they get really mad, right? But so those are the criteria, those are the standards, and there are more, right? There's digital effects, because digital effects are really important to superhero movies, because people can't really do those things. Sorry. So they need to make it look like, right, the dude is really flying, right? Or the dude is really zapping someone with his eyes. Or Wonder Woman is really lassoing somebody, right? And then making them tell the truth. It needs to look like that. So digital effects are important to that particular genre. But what we were doing is we were establishing a set of standards. That's the because. So an argument, you've got two things you need to think about when you're thinking about a statement being arguable or not. Is there a should? Okay, are you trying to tell somebody that something should or shouldn't be a way, or they should or shouldn't do something? That's a sign of argument. And then there should be a because, either stated explicitly, where you list the things. Professor Green is the best professor on campus because he's funny, right? He lets everybody go early. He doesn't give a lot of homework, right? Or he's, as Nancy was saying more seriously, he's won these awards, right? Students really like him. He's very clear in the way he articulates his expectations, right? He gives good feedback. That's the because. Those are the standards against which we're gonna evaluate Professor Green, right? And those are some pieces of evidence you're giving to support the argument you wanna make about him, that he's the best because. And then when you put those things in your thesis, he's the best because these things, 1, 2, 3, those can signal what your paragraphs are going to be about. So your first paragraph could be about Professor Green, giving good feedback. And then you would give specific examples, right? Professor Green is the best professor because he's willing to meet with students individually and help them. And then you would give an example, perhaps from your own experience. Okay? But that's the kind of thing that makes a statement arguable for academic purposes, for writing a college paper. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen with you again. All right, so we just talked about this one. What about this one? Children are better off raised in a traditional nuclear family. And nuclear just means like it has a nucleus, right? It's got, and traditional means this is the way we usually do things, right? So a traditional nuclear family is a family with a mom, okay, who is gendered and biologically female, a dad who is gendered and biologically male, right? And then 2.5 kids, because that's the average. So do you think this statement is an arguable statement? Can reasonable people disagree about it? Okay, I'm looking at chat now, and Rocio's saying it's arguable, Ashley's saying it's arguable, arguable. Okay, I agree with you. Viviana says it's arguable, Daniel. Pretty much everyone agrees that that one's arguable, and I do too. Okay, what about this one? Advertisements now often appear, let me move my chat window over, in films using a strategy called product placement. What about that? Is that arguable? What do you guys think? Not arguable because it's a fact. Okay, good. So I think you guys get this. Jose, Wendy, you guys are all agreeing it's not arguable because it's a fact, right? We could revise this and say, advertisements now often appear in commercial films using product placement, and they shouldn't, right? They should not. We don't want this. Or we could say, and it's great. It's a great thing to do. And then that would make this statement more arguable, okay? But right now, it's just a fact. It's just saying what happens, okay? And this one is a fact, right? Do we know it's a true fact? We could look it up, right? And that's what the book explains, differentiates a fact. A fact is something that even if it's disputed as a fact, you can easily confirm or disconfirm the factualness of a statement by just looking it up with some authority on the subject. Okay, what about this one? Juveniles who commit serious crimes should be sent to adult prisons. Is that one arguable, you guys? Okay, you guys are doing a good job of using the chat now. Yeah, I agree with you. Ryan, everyone, Emilio, Andrew, Seth, Bianca, everyone's saying it's arguable, and I agree. All right, so I think you guys get this. So let's move on. All right, so I just want to briefly go through some of the other elements of argument using this PowerPoint that I created for that purpose. All right, and the first slide of it talks about, you know, some of the things that you need to have in an academic argument. You start with an issue that's open to debate, and that's what we were just talking about. Are these statements debatable? Are they topics about which people can make an argument? Then you need to state your position on the issue. And then you come up with a set of reasons to support that position. And then you give specific evidence to support the reasons. And then you have to present opposing viewpoints. Those viewpoints that are going to disagree with your position. The reasons that people who disagree with you will have for their disagreement. And then you answer those, and you can answer opposing viewpoints in these ways. Okay, so those are the main elements of argument. Every argument needs to have that stuff in it. And here are some key terms, some of which we've already talked about. An opposing viewpoint, okay? Those, as I just said, those are the reasons that people who disagree with you in your position will have. Okay, they'll have their own reasons why they think you're wrong. And those are their viewpoints that they oppose you. All right, and as I said, you've got to build an argument based on those main elements that we just covered, where you set up your position and you anticipate. Do you guys know Calvin and Hobbes? Best comic ever. Okay, that's Calvin. He's an incorrigible 6-year-old. He's coming at your position with what looks like a golf club. He's all set to break it, and he does, because you didn't support it. So that's Calvin and his imaginary friend Hobbes dancing on your demolished position. All right, but now you've supported your position with a reason, and that's good, but it's not good enough. Okay, you need to give reasons and then evidence to support your position. All right, topic selection. You pick a topic that's debatable, as we just said, and then we just, you figure out what kinds of topics are arguable, and we said facts aren't, okay, opinions aren't, certain kinds of opinions aren't, all right, but opinions based on judgment are, and we can turn opinions that are based on judgment, like what the best superhero comic book superhero movie is, we can turn those into arguable statements by applying a standard, okay? Establishing criteria. And then we can argue. We can compare our statement to the criteria that people generally agree are valid criteria against which to judge something. All right? All right, let's see. Okay. A thesis statement. All right. Okay, so I think that's all of that I want to look at with you for now. Let me go back here. Okay, and we're going to do an exercise in class that I'm going to set you up for right now by reviewing this document here. And by the way, do you see these little lenses right here? This is what I sent an announcement to you guys about earlier in the week, that if you're having trouble downloading documents to your device, a workaround for the time being is to open the document in Canvas, and you do that by clicking on that little lens. And then you can open and read the document right here in Canvas. Let me move my stuff over. Oops, that went to the bottom of the screen. Oh well. All right, and these are some scanned pages from a book I used to use that costs $100. It's ridiculous, so that's why I don't use it anymore. And you can see I've highlighted and annotated throughout this document. Okay. And the PowerPoint that I just looked at covers a lot of these points. But the page I want to look at with you, okay, is this one right here. this page right here, 11. This idea of the yes, but exchange, right? Because this sets us up for the dialogue that I want you guys to construct using the pro-con checklist that you guys developed and submitted to Canvas for homework. Okay, I asked you to construct a pro-con checklist that looks like this, right? Where you come up with points of argument on both sides of a debate. In this case, the debate is over human cloning, and there are reasons for human cloning and reasons against human cloning. And I asked you to come up with 2 lists of points and counterpoints on the topics of women soldiers serving in combat and binge drinking on college campuses. All right, and what I'm going to ask you to do after I put you in groups here is compare the points and counterpoints that you came up with and choose one topic to construct a dialogue from. So you're going to take the points and counterpoints that you developed for your pro-con checklist in your group. You're going to pick which topic to use for a dialogue. And then you're going to decide which of the points and counterpoints to put into conversation with each other to construct a dialogue. All right, let me show you page 13 here, which is an example of what I want you to do. So the scenario here is that a student and a professor have a disagreement about a course policy, which is there are no makeup tests. That's the policy. And the student thinks that policy is unfair. So the student goes to talk to the professor about that policy, and the student has reasons why, okay, he or she thinks that policy is unfair. But the professor has her reasons why she thinks has put the policy in place and thinks it's a good policy. But what these 2 individuals do is they listen to and respond to each other's concerns. And that's the kind of dialogue I want you to create from the topic you choose from the pro-con work that you did. I want you to put those viewpoints into conversation with each other after you choose which topic to use, and make them respond to each other in a dialogue where one person speaks and then the other person responds. One person speaks and gives their reason, okay, on one side of the issue, and then the other person responds to that reason, but then goes on to give their reason, okay?